Have you ever noticed how the heaviest chains are the ones no one can see? They are not wrapped around your hands or your feet. They are wrapped around your heart. They are built from expectations, disappointments, memories, and the desperate hope that people will become who they have already shown you they are not. We spend years carrying emotions that no longer belong to us, believing that holding on is a sign of strength, when in truth it is often the quiet surrender of our own peace. There comes a moment in every life when you must ask yourself a difficult question. How much of who I am has been given away just to keep someone else comfortable? The answer is rarely easy, but it is always revealing. Because the day you stop asking the world for permission to be whole is the day your life begins to change. Emotional detachment is not about abandoning love, compassion, or kindness. It is about refusing to let your worth be measured by another person's choices. It is about standing in the mirror and recognizing that your spirit was never meant to be a storage place for other people's failures, betrayals, or unfinished battles. The strongest people are not those who never feel pain. They are the ones who refuse to let pain become their identity. Today, we are going to uncover why emotional freedom is one of the greatest acts of courage, how letting go can become the beginning of your greatest transformation, and why the life waiting for you on the other side of detachment is far more powerful than anything you are afraid to leave behind. Emotional attachment can become an invisible prison because it often develops so quietly that we do not notice when it begins to control our thoughts, choices, and sense of self. At first, attachment feels comforting. It gives us a feeling of belonging, connection, and security. We become attached to people, relationships, routines, and even painful memories because they are familiar. The danger is not in caring deeply. The danger is in allowing that attachment to determine our value and our direction in life. When that happens, we begin to live according to what we fear losing rather than according to who we are meant to become. Many people stay trapped in situations that no longer serve them because they are emotionally attached to the idea of what once was. They remember the good moments and ignore the damage that followed. They hold on to promises that were never fulfilled and keep waiting for a version of someone that may never appear. This attachment creates a prison without walls. The person is physically free, yet emotionally unable to move forward. Every decision becomes influenced by fear, fear of rejection, fear of loneliness, fear of starting over, and fear of letting go. Emotional attachment can also make us dependent on external validation. We begin to seek approval from others to feel worthy. A compliment lifts us up, while criticism destroys our confidence. Our mood rises and falls according to how people treat us. In that state, we hand over the keys to our emotional well-being and allow others to decide whether we feel strong or weak, valuable or worthless. The prison becomes even stronger because we no longer trust our own judgment. We wait for others to confirm what we should already know about ourselves. Another way attachment limits growth is by keeping us stuck in the past. We replay old conversations, old mistakes, and old heartbreaks, believing that if we think about them long enough, we will finally find peace. Instead, we remain trapped in memories that cannot be changed. Growth requires movement, but attachment often convinces us to stay still. It whispers that the past is safer than the unknown future, even when the past has already caused us pain. The most difficult part is that emotional prisons often feel familiar, and familiarity can be mistaken for comfort. A person may know that a relationship is unhealthy, that a dream has ended, or that a chapter of life is over, yet still struggle to release it because attachment has become part of their identity. Letting go feels like losing a piece of themselves. In reality, they are not losing themselves. They are making room to discover who they are without the weight of what has been holding them back. True freedom begins when we recognize that attachment should never become ownership over our peace. We can love people without losing ourselves in them. We can cherish memories without living inside them. We can care deeply while still protecting our emotional independence. The moment we stop clinging to what is no longer helping us grow, the invisible bars begin to disappear, and we start to see possibilities that were hidden behind the walls of our own attachment. Detachment is often misunderstood as emotional distance, indifference, or a refusal to care, but its true meaning is far more powerful. It is not the absence of love. It is the presence of wisdom. It is the ability to care without allowing your peace to depend on another person's behavior. It is choosing to protect your emotional well-being while still remaining compassionate, kind, and open-hearted. The strongest individuals are not those who feel nothing. They are those who feel deeply without allowing those feelings to take control of every decision they make. Many people believe that if they detach emotionally, they will become cold or uncaring. In reality, healthy detachment allows a person to love more honestly because their actions are no longer driven by fear, desperation, or the need for constant reassurance. They stop chasing acceptance and begin offering genuine respect, both to others and to themselves. Their kindness comes from choice rather than obligation. Their generosity comes from abundance rather than emptiness. This creates relationships that are healthier because they are built on mutual respect instead of emotional dependence. When you are emotionally attached in an unhealthy way, every disagreement feels like rejection. Every silence feels like abandonment, and every criticism feels like a personal attack. Your emotions become tied to circumstances you cannot control. Healthy detachment changes this perspective. It teaches you that another person's mood, opinions, or choices do not define your worth. You begin to understand that people act according to their own experiences, beliefs, and struggles. Their behavior reflects their journey, not your value. Detachment also creates clarity. Strong emotions can cloud judgment, making it difficult to see situations as they truly are. Fear can make unhealthy relationships appear necessary. Loneliness can make temporary comfort seem like lasting happiness. Anger can convince us to make decisions we later regret. By creating emotional space, detachment allows us to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. We begin to see patterns instead of isolated moments. We notice whether people consistently respect us or repeatedly take advantage of our kindness. This clarity becomes one of the greatest gifts of emotional independence. Inner peace is impossible when every external event has the power to shake your foundation. Life is unpredictable. People change, opportunities disappear, and unexpected challenges arise. If your happiness depends entirely on circumstances remaining perfect, disappointment becomes unavoidable. Detachment teaches you to build your peace from within. It reminds you that while you cannot control everything around you, you can always choose how you respond. This inner stability becomes a source of quiet strength that remains even during difficult seasons. Self-respect naturally grows through healthy detachment. You stop begging for attention where you are ignored. You stop explaining your worth to people determined not to see it. You stop sacrificing your values simply to keep someone else comfortable. Instead, you develop boundaries that protect your energy and allow you to invest your time in people and experiences that bring mutual growth. You learn that saying no is not selfish. Walking away is not weakness, and protecting your peace is not an act of pride, but an act of wisdom. The more you practice this form of detachment, the more you discover that real strength is not found in holding on at any cost, but in knowing when to release what no longer honors your spirit, your purpose, or your future. True freedom begins the moment you stop allowing other people to control your emotions. This does not mean that you stop caring about those around you, or pretend that words and actions have no effect on you. It means that you no longer surrender your peace to circumstances or people you cannot control. Too often, individuals unknowingly place their happiness in someone else's hands. They wait for appreciation to feel valuable, for apologies to heal, for approval to gain confidence, or for attention to feel loved. In doing so, they give away the very power that belongs to them. Freedom begins when you recognize that your emotional state should never be permanently dependent on another person's choices. Many people spend years reacting instead of responding. A harsh comment ruins their entire day. A delayed message fills them with anxiety. Someone else's success makes them question their own worth. A disagreement convinces them that they are unlovable. These reactions happen because emotions have become tied to external events rather than internal stability. When your peace depends on everything going exactly as you expect, life becomes exhausting. There will always be people who misunderstand you, disappoint you, criticize you, or fail to recognize your value. If every one of those moments determines how you feel about yourself, you become a prisoner of circumstances that are constantly changing. One of the greatest forms of emotional control exercised by others is often unintentional. People may not even realize the influence they have over your thoughts because you have silently given them permission. You replay conversations long after they have forgotten them. You seek meaning in every action they take. You assume responsibility for emotions that are not yours to carry. Gradually, your attention shifts away from your own growth and becomes centered on managing someone else's opinions or expectations. This quiet habit steals confidence one moment at a time. Freedom requires a shift in perspective. Instead of asking, "Why did they treat me this way?" begin asking, "How will I choose to respond?" This simple change places responsibility back where it belongs. You cannot control another person's honesty, kindness, loyalty, or respect, but you can control whether their actions define your identity. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to strengthen your emotional resilience rather than weaken it. Instead of reacting with anger, you respond with wisdom. Instead of chasing explanations, you embrace acceptance. Instead of seeking revenge, you choose peace. There is incredible strength in understanding that not every opinion deserves your attention. People will judge based on limited knowledge, personal bias, or their own unresolved struggles. Their perception of you is shaped by their experiences, not by the full truth of who you are. Once you realize this, criticism loses much of its power. You stop living to satisfy expectations that constantly change and begin living according to values that remain steady regardless of circumstances. Emotional freedom also transforms relationships. When you no longer depend on others to complete you, you approach people from a place of confidence instead of need. You appreciate their presence without fearing their absence. You offer kindness without expecting constant validation in return. You forgive without forgetting your self-worth. You become less interested in controlling outcomes and more committed to protecting your peace. This inner independence creates a quiet confidence that cannot be shaken by temporary setbacks, changing opinions, or the unpredictable behavior of others. Allowing your life to be guided by purpose rather than emotional reactions to every passing moment. Every ending carries within it the quiet promise of a new beginning, even if it does not feel that way in the moment. When something important comes to an end, whether it is a relationship, a friendship, a career opportunity, or a long-held dream, the first emotion is often loss. We focus on what has disappeared instead of what is now possible. We grieve the familiar because the unknown feels uncertain. Yet some of life's greatest transformations begin with the courage to accept that not every chapter is meant to last forever. An ending is not always a sign of failure. Sometimes it is life's way of making space for a stronger, wiser version of yourself to emerge. Many people resist endings because they mistake them for permanent defeat. They continue holding on to situations that have already served their purpose. They replay old conversations, revisit painful memories, and search endlessly for ways to return to what once was. But growth does not happen by standing at the closed door. It happens when you gather the strength to turn around and notice the many doors that have quietly opened around you. Every ending teaches a lesson that comfort could never provide. It reveals your resilience, your priorities, and the depth of your inner strength. Think about the person you were years ago. Your beliefs, fears, and dreams have likely changed because life has continuously asked you to let go of old versions of yourself. If every chapter had remained exactly the same, you would never have discovered new abilities, new perspectives, or new opportunities. Change can be uncomfortable, but comfort rarely demands growth. Endings challenge you to become someone capable of handling the future rather than remaining attached to the past. Pain often becomes the greatest teacher when we allow it to shape us instead of define us. A broken promise can teach discernment. A disappointment can teach patience. A betrayal can teach the importance of healthy boundaries. Failure can reveal strengths that success never required. These lessons are not rewards for suffering, but gifts that become visible only when we choose to learn rather than remain bitter. The strongest individuals are not those who have avoided difficult endings. They are those who have walked through them without allowing those experiences to harden their hearts or diminish their hope. Transformation also requires releasing the identity connected to what has ended. Sometimes people continue seeing themselves through the lens of an old relationship, an old title, or an old mistake. They allow yesterday's events to define today's possibilities. But you are more than your losses. You are more than the people who left, the opportunities that disappeared, or the dreams that changed direction. Your identity is not determined by what ended, but by how you choose to rise afterward. The process of becoming stronger rarely happens all at once. It unfolds through small daily decisions. Choosing to forgive instead of carrying resentment. Choosing to trust yourself instead of doubting every step. Choosing to invest in your future rather than living in regret. These choices gradually reshape your character and prepare you for opportunities that your former self could not have handled. Every ending strips away something that no longer belongs in your life, allowing wisdom, confidence, and emotional maturity to take its place. With each chapter that closes, you gain the chance to write a new one with greater purpose, deeper understanding, and a clearer vision of the person you are becoming. A transformed life does not begin with extraordinary circumstances or dramatic changes. It begins with a single decision, the decision to choose yourself over emotional chaos. This choice is not about becoming selfish or ignoring the needs of others. It is about recognizing that you cannot build a meaningful life while constantly abandoning your own peace to satisfy expectations, repair broken situations, or carry burdens that were never yours to bear. The moment you decide that your well-being matters, everything else begins to shift. Your thoughts become clearer, your choices become wiser, and your future starts moving in a direction guided by purpose rather than emotional confusion. For many people, emotional chaos becomes so familiar that they mistake it for normal life. They become accustomed to constant stress, endless overthinking, and relationships filled with uncertainty. They wake up worried about how someone else feels, spend the day trying to avoid conflict, and go to bed replaying conversations that cannot be changed. This cycle slowly drains their energy, creativity, and confidence. They become so focused on surviving emotionally that they forget what it feels like to truly live. Choosing yourself means deciding that peace is no longer something you hope to find one day. It becomes something you actively protect every day. When you choose yourself, your priorities begin to change. You no longer chase people who repeatedly walk away. You stop explaining your worth to those determined not to understand it. You stop saying yes when every part of you knows the answer should be no. Instead, you begin making decisions that align with your values rather than your fears. This shift may seem small at first, but over time it completely changes the direction of your life. Every healthy boundary strengthens your confidence. Every wise decision increases your self-respect. Every moment of honesty with yourself becomes another step toward lasting transformation. Transformation also requires letting go of guilt. Many people believe that putting themselves first means they are disappointing others. They feel responsible for everyone else's happiness while neglecting their own. But there is an important difference between kindness and self-sacrifice. Kindness gives without destroying itself. Self-sacrifice, when taken too far, leaves a person emotionally exhausted and unable to offer genuine love or support. Choosing yourself means understanding that your needs are not less important simply because you care deeply about others. A healthy life is built on balance, not constant emotional depletion. As you continue choosing yourself, your relationships begin to improve. You no longer seek approval because your confidence comes from within. You stop fearing loneliness because you discover comfort in your own company. You become more patient, more thoughtful, and more emotionally stable because your happiness is no longer controlled by the unpredictable actions of other people. This inner security attracts healthier connections, built on respect rather than dependence and understanding rather than fear. The most remarkable part of transformation is that it often happens quietly. There may not be a single dramatic moment when everything changes overnight. Instead, one day you realize that the things which once disturbed your peace no longer have the same power. You notice that criticism no longer defines your value. Rejection no longer destroys your confidence, and uncertainty no longer prevents you from moving forward. You become someone who responds with wisdom instead of reacting with emotion, someone who walks away from what no longer serves them without bitterness, and someone who understands that the greatest investment they can ever make is protecting their own peace, honoring their own worth, and living each day with the quiet confidence that comes from finally choosing themselves above the noise of emotional chaos.